In 2003, a serial murder case in Beijing shocked the whole country. In just half a year, a total of 6 men were killed. They died tragically with their genitals brutally cut off by the killer. After in-depth investigation, the police found that all 6 victims were homosexuals that liked to go to gay bars and had the kink of BDSM. Soon, the Beijing Municipal Public Security Bureau identified the suspect as the man Li Yijiang, who was only 23 years old. He used to be a student of Beijing Institute of Technology, so what led this academically gifted man to become a criminal? Hello, welcome to the Crime Documentary Files channel. At 9 p.m. on March 19, 2003, Li Yijiang's parents called their son that worked away in Beijing as usual. After a long period of busy tone, they decided to call his landline, but it wasn't picked up still. They thought their son had gone to bed, so they didn't think too much of it, even though they were a bit confused. They called Li Yijiang again after 2 days, but still didn't get any answer. The worried parents had to take the train to Beijing overnight and arrived at their son's residence in Haidian district. As soon as they entered the door, they saw a scene that they could not unsee their whole lives, as they found the deceased Li Yijiang tied up, with knife wounds all over his body. They called the police in panic and a great deal of sadness, and the police arrived at the scene swiftly and investigated the fingerprints and modus operandi. The police found that this case was very similar to the previous 5 homicides, which means that there have been 6 similar cases from the end of 2002 to the beginning of 2003. During the investigation of 6 similar homicides in Beijing, they found that the victims shared 3 common characteristics. They were all homosexual, they enjoyed BDSM, and they were all on same-sex dating sites. Soon after, the police focused on people who had communicated with 5 of the victims on the internet and were also homosexual, thereby narrowing down the pool of suspects. They made progress in less than half a month. On April 4, 2003, through visiting and investigating the daily activities of several victims, the police identified a man named Li Yijiang. In many people's eyes, Li Yijiang is an ordinary employee of Ping An Insurance Company of China who works hard for his job and life. He looked like an ordinary person, but his neighbors recalled that his sexual orientation seemed to be unique. He often brought different men home from gay bars, and he was chatting to several victims' QQ chat rooms. Li Yijiang was highly suspicious, so the police quickly launched an operation. They rushed to Li Yijiang's rented flat, which was at the basement of Building 12, Liufang Nanli Dongjimen, Dongcheng District, Beijing, to arrest him. Unexpectedly, the officers bumped right into Li Yijiang, who was walking his dog, and he looked particularly calm when he saw the police. He said, "Are you looking for me?" Just like that, Li Yijiang did not resist, did not argue, went home to get some daily necessities, and went to the police station with the police. After comparison, the police found that the fingerprints at the scene of the murder were consistent with those of Li Yijiang. He quickly admitted that he had killed 6 gay men through online dating. But the calm Li Yijiang got angry as soon as he was talking about the motive and said, "The 4 of them had tied me up and violated me, and I wanted to kill them all to deal with my resentment." In November 2002, Li Yijiang, who attended a party in a gay bar, met 4 strangers. Because they were all gay, Li Yijiang and the 4 of them had really good conversations at the bar. After Li Yijiang was drunk, the 4 men invited Li Yijiang to hang out in a private house near the East 3rd 3 Road. Maybe it was because he was drugged halfway. Maybe it was because he was drunk, Li Yijiang started to fall asleep and became unconscious when he got to their place. He woke up in a daze and found himself tied to the heating pipe in the house, and all his clothes were stripped off. The 4 men in front of him also took turns to assault and torture him naked for several hours. After several hours of humiliation, Li Yijiang broke down completely. After he got home, Li Yijiang rubbed his body numbly and planned a shocking revenge. Li Yijiang began to inquire about the identities of the 4 people, and he initially found the first victim at the bar district of Sanlitun. Li Yijiang first followed him to an internet cafe, and when he got off the computer, he quickly turned on the computer that had not yet been turned off and got the victim's QQ number. After that, he used the name WSBT to add this man with the online profile called Paid Slave and tempted him to meet with him. Paid Slave said he likes to be tied up and abused, but Li would need to pay him 1100 USD if he wants to have sex. Li Yijiang agreed to the offer and found his residence, a bungalow at Fengtai district, by stalking him before meeting him offline. He did not immediately retaliate, but began to wait near the bungalow before he could be sure that Paid Slave was living alone. On January 17, 2003, the two successfully met offline. After seeing that the person was Li Yijiang, who had been violated by himself, Paid Slave first felt extremely surprised, but the lure of money made him less alert. What he didn't expect was that after they had sex, Li brutally took his life with a Spanish saber that he carried with him. After taking out his first enemy, Li quickly identified the second victim, called Pretty Feet Hottie, a master student at the Department of Foreign Languages. After Li Yijiang waited near Zhongguancun, he used the same method to make an appointment with the victim. When he arrived at the victim's home, he first turned the speaker volume to the maximum and then had sex the way they previously agreed on. After he tied up the hands and feet of the victim, which has lost his ability to resist, Li Yijiang had sex with him while making cuts on his body, and then he took his life with a knife. Next, Li Yijiang would track down and kill his third and fourth enemies in the same way. The third victim was the oldest and strongest one, who was also the most brutal to Li Yijiang at that time. After making an appointment with him in the same way, Li Yijiang will impose all his grief, indignation, and tyranny on him. After he got rid of the man, he was still angry and cut off his genital and threw it into the garbage. However, after getting rid of these 4 people, Li Yijiang's inner hatred did not disappear. On the contrary, he got pleasure from killing people. So in the next 6 months, he made appointments with 2 gay men through the internet and killed them without any reason. Using the same method, Li Yijiang brutally killed 6 men in the short period of 6 months. From a man looking for revenge to a gay serial killer, Li Yijiang's personal information was also disclosed during the police investigation. But to the surprise of countless people, being violated by a strange man was only the fuse that set off his killing, and the root of all tragedies has been buried as early as his childhood. Li Yijiang was born in 1980, and he was raised by her grandmother in Shandong when he was young, as his family already had 2 boys early. When he was old enough to go to school, Li Yijiang's aunt loved him dearly, so she tried to get him to go to primary school in Beijing. At the beginning of junior high school, Li Yijiang had to return to his parents in Changji City, Xinjiang, as Li's aunt were having family issues. His nightmare began during this period. Li Yijiang's poor parents were ordinary workers, and there were 2 brothers who grew up with the parents. Li Yijiang, like an outsider, could not get the recognition and love of his family members. What made it even more unbearable is that his mother suffered from severe mental illness and would smash things for no reason, and often beat and tell young Li Yijiang off. After he went to high school, his mother's mental illness gradually stabilized, but in the process of taking care of his mother for a long time, his father also became irritable and had drinking problems for a long time. When he was drunk, Li Yijiang was often beaten by him, or even chased around the house by his father, holding a kitchen knife. The unhealthy family atmosphere left Li Yijiang with an incurable psychological shadow. His personality changed gradually, and his parents' beating made him violent also. Gradually, whenever he felt troubled, he would resort to violence. When he was studying in middle school, Li Yijiang found that his sexual orientation was somewhat different, and he did not like his female classmates, but was very interested in his male classmates. Li had an interest in Tang in his class, and they became close after Li's effort to befriend him. But when Li Yijiang wanted to go further, he was rejected and even despised by Tang. Li Yijiang was not only afraid of losing Tang, but was also frightened that Tang will tell others about his homosexuality. So, after the last confession to Tang was rejected, he killed Tang on February 21, 1994. 10 days later, Tang's body, which had been stabbed more than 20 times, was found in a plantation next to the campus. Li Yijiang, who had a dispute with Tang, was soon listed as a suspect, but no direct evidence was found. In addition, Li Yijiang was mentally tough and did not show any flaws under the police's inquiry, so the case remained unsolved. One night in December of the same year, Li Yijiang was walking alone in the street when he collided with a man about 30 years old. However, the man did not blame him and kindly asked him if he's been hurt. Faced with the man's gentle attitude, Li Yijiang became less alert and went to the restaurant with him for a drink, and he confided the grievances he had suffered at home for many years. Li Yijiang, 15, apparently overestimated his tolerance to alcohol and woke up the next day to find that he had been violated. The indignant Li Yijiang was determined to retaliate, so he found a knife from home and waited at that intersection every day after school for the man who had violated him to reappear, but he had never seen the man again. This humiliating experience made Li Yijiang even more violent, and because he found that he liked but also hated men at the same time. In 1999, Li Yijiang was admitted to Beijing University of Technology with the second place in the college entrance examination in Changji City. When he finally escaped from his family, he was relaxed, and all kinds of fashionable places in the metropolis attracted his attention. He began going to internet cafes with classmates frequently. Once he accidentally clicked into a website called Purple Boy, which is a large gay dating website. Li Yijiang found groups of people similar to him and started to indulge in it. At that time, Li Yijiang would spend a lot of money on internet fees, but the money sent by his family became less and less, and he did not want to ask his parents for money, so he chose to go out to work to earn money. He worked part-time in 2 restaurant chains, one in the morning and one in the evening, often working 12 hours a day. Gradually, Li Yijiang, who worked for long hours to earn money and indulged in internet cafes, soon felt that his studies had been left behind, and it became hard for him to keep up with his schoolwork. At the end of the second semester, he failed several courses, and in the third semester, he didn't want to take his exams. Dealing with the financial and university's pressure, he finally dropped out of college in the 3rd year. In June 2002, Li Yijiang, who was active in numerous homosexual forums, met a netizen named Tang Jianxiao. Tang Jingxiao was a rich and 7 or 8 years older than Li Yijiang. He worked in a foreign company with decent salary. He took care of Li Yijiang generously, and Li Yijiang quickly fell in love and began to do house chores for Tang Jianxiao. In September of the same year, after dropping out of school, Li Yijiang moved to Tang Jianxiao's home and lived with him. Fearing that Li Yijiang would be lonely at home, Tang Jianxiao bought him a puppy as a companion, and he even gave Li Yijiang a sum of money to encourage him to start his own clothing business. This temporarily wholesome time once made Li Yijiang let go of the hatred in his heart and become gentle and outgoing. However, the good times did not last very long, and not long after they were together, Tang Jianxiao slowly started to ignore Li Yijiang. Later, he introduced Li Yijiang to some of his other gay partners, and after they had sex, he would give Li Yijiang a bit of money as compensation. This made Li Yijiang both sad and embarrassed. He felt that Tang Jianxiao had betrayed himself, and in order to get Tang Jianxiao's heart back, Li Yijiang began to frequent gay bars and had sex with other men. He thought it was some kind of revenge for Tang Jianxiao's infidelity, and Tang Jianxiao would be jealous when he saw his betrayal. Little did he know that Tang Jianxiao did not care about his relationships with other people at all, which made Li Yijiang even more depressed and disheartened. Li Yijiang realized that Tang Jianxiao only saw him as a casual partner, and he didn't love him but merely used him as a toy. This made Li Yijiang more and more disgusted. What was more cruel is that his revenge not only failed to get the result he wanted, but Tang Jianxiao also broke up with him. This absurd relationship finally came to an abrupt end, and it was during this time when Li Yijiang was drinking to drown his sorrows. He was brutally tortured by 4 men, frequently being abused by his parents during his childhood, assaulted by a stranger when he was a teen, and abandoned by his lover when he was an adult. All kinds of accumulated pain broke out at this moment. Already committing a murder in high school, he once again chose to kill the person who had humiliated him. He was deeply attracted to men, yet deeply hurt by them. So he thought that all homosexuals should be killed, and he began his murders. In a later interview, he admitted that he was controlled by the hatred he accumulated for a long time, and he actually felt a long-lost peace after his imprisonment. In October 2003, the Beijing People's Procuratorate formally filed a lawsuit against Li Yijiang, and in November of the same year, Li Yijiang was sentenced to death sentence for murder and deprived of political rights for life. On the morning of August 20, 2004, Li Yijiang was escorted to the execution ground in the First Intermediate People's Court of Beijing for execution. Before his departure, Li Yijiang was very calm. After pressing his fingerprint on the legal document, he said politely, "Thank you, Judge." Li Yijiang's story has sparked social concern about sexual minorities, and he was certainly an unfortunate man. But when faced with humiliation and violence, he did not want to resort to the law, but chose to take revenge into his own hands. It was undoubtedly impulsive and foolish, especially when the knife in his hand was pointing at innocent people. The crimes he committed become even more unforgivable. What do you think of this case? Feel free to interact with us in the comments section.